So how do you build a barndominium? Well, let me take you on this journey. This is part 3 of building a barndominium in Chattanooga, Tennessee. If you haven't watched part 1 or 2, click on the links above. I'm thrilled to share this adventure with you, with the initial dream to the nitty-gritty planning and everything in between. Previously, we ended on concrete and rough-in plumbing. So next comes the septic and water line run. We had the same company that did our concrete do our septic system. And don't forget, the septic system is based on numbers of bedrooms that you have in your house, not the bathrooms that you have in your house. And that's kind of weird, right? Because, hey, it's what the county wants. And that's common throughout many different places in many different states. So even though it's up to the county, everyone kind of flows that way. At least that's what I've seen. We also had the same contractor run the lines from the well all the way to the top of the hill for the main water. Now, this was interesting because we had to have a well put in a while back. We talked about it in the previous video. Did not have the amount of pressure that we needed to get to the top of the hill. So they came back, they put a 3 horsepower pump in, and now we have plenty of pressure to get to the top of the hill. What's interesting about that too is that we didn't necessarily have to put the water and electrical separate. In this county, they're allowing you to put electrical first. If it's high voltage electrical, go 3 feet underground, and then put a foot of soil on top of it, and you can put the water line on top of that. If it's not high voltage, if you're after the transformer, then you can go 2 feet underground, you can put the water line on top of it. Since our barndominium build is on top of a hill and the electrical pole is at the bottom, we had to hire a contractor to dig a trench for running an electrical line from the base to the top and install the underground wiring. Now, electrically, they allow you to have up to 750 feet of electrical wire for free. The electric company wants you to use them, right? So they're going to provide some of it for free, only up to a certain point. After that, it becomes $8 a foot for just the wire. That doesn't include the trenching and the conduit that you have to do yourself if it's underground. This was a lot of wires and a lot of pipe that we had to buy. We had to buy also 2 rolls of 1-inch PEX pipe, PEX A, all the way up to the hill. And so the total costs of the conduit, trenching, the piping, all this stuff was about $12,432.17. So we're finally getting geared up for our building, and we chose to have a metal structure, as you know. After weeks of hunting for quotes and ensuring that this specific design for residential use, and it's not just for garages, we are thrilled to share that our metal building will be built out of heavy-duty steel, perfect for withstanding strong winds. It only took them a week to put it up, and they install the windows too. And the middle building is made out of 12 gauge steel, and it's double-legged and ladder-legged so that it will withstand some major winds. After 30 feet, I think I mentioned this other videos, you have to do the ladder legs, and they did that all the way down. That causes the wall to be much thicker, but it also is much more sturdy. This is considered a category 2, a risk category 2 building. And that's important because category 1 is like a carport. You don't want to live in a carport building. It's going to blow away. It's like tornado magnets. They just like, and they're gone. Risk category 2, that's safety for residential use. Risk category 3, I believe that's a business. Risk category 4, that's like a place that holds a lot of people, like a church, maybe. So this is important to know when you're looking for a metal building contractor is, can you build a risk category 2 building? Because that's super important, because the county won't final it unless they can see that the wind load is a certain amount, snow load is a certain amount. These are all based on sometimes generic plans, but sometimes they'll engineer plans for you. So very important. So here's a super fast sneak peek of building the barndominium. There's a longer time lapse on the YouTube channel. If you go to my YouTube channel, I'll show you, but it's definitely worth checking out. So total cost for this building was $56,708.17. So just a quick tip though, building your dream home can be tricky, especially finding the right people to do the specific jobs. And that's where a good real estate person comes in, because they know people that are handy, and they also know people that are trusted professionals who are available and work well together, making the whole process smoother and less stressful. And that's where I come in. I'm part of a real estate team in the county, and if you want to know everything about living in Chattanooga and its surrounding areas, make sure you hit that subscribe button. If you're looking for something in the area, whether it be a house or land, well, we can talk about it. we can talk about all your Barndo plans. So you'll stay updated on the latest real estate trends. But if you do have questions about living in a Barndominium or building a barn, you can leave them in the comments. Leave them in the comments and I'll get right back to you. Or just hit the subscribe button and I'll probably answer them in these next couple videos. So you'll stay updated on the latest real estate trends, because whether or not you call me directly because you're interested in real estate or you're leaving a comment because you're interested in Barndos, we love hearing from you. So whether your move is early or late, we're always here to make it great. Now, let's get back to the video. Windows. We had to order them months in advance, and this was important because you don't want the building to come and then the windows not be here yet. What are you going to do? It was a little nerve-wracking since we were building them based on the architect's drawings before the metal building was even up. And it's crucial to stick to those plans to ensure the windows fit perfectly when they arrive. Sometimes the windows and doors, they don't fit perfectly. So we chose our windows from Home Depot. We went to a lot of different local places and we went to the big box places. We found that Home Depot, their windows were cheaper. So, and also there's only some places that offer the sleek black framed look that my wife likes. So she, being the queen of aesthetics, goes ahead and buys the windows that she wants, and they weren't too much more. We also had to pay for a contract company, same guy who installed the metal building, to install our windows for us because, well, they are the pros. We are not. So the total cost was $18,336.87 for the windows, plus $5,350 for labor to install the windows. That's equal about $23,686.87. So let's move on to insulation, because this was important too. Insulation time. We decided to go with spray foam. And I know it's a little more expensive, but it's really cost effective when you're trying to heat and cool a building. And it just works so much better with these metal buildings. So especially when you have these giant gaps, because in those supporting walls you have 12-inch gap, and you're really going to stick a R19 in those and it's just going to flop around in there. So we decided it's probably best if we do spray foam. So it was a little unique even to do spray foam though, because we had to do it in 2 phases. Typically you don't do that with a house. You do insulation all in the same phase. But because it was a Barndominium, it needed to be spray foamed in 2 phases. And here's why. When you build a regular stick-built house, you have OSB, which is a type of plywood that goes on the outside of the house, so it prevents that from falling over. You've seen those TikTok and reel videos of the house that just gets rained on and all of a sudden it just falls down while it's being built. Well, that's because they didn't put any plywood on it, and it just folded those sticks and they fell right over instead of holding the house up firm, because it just got a little bit heavier than it should. The problem with the Barndo is that there's metal on the outside, so you can't really put that OSB on the outside. So we talked to our county inspector, and he said, I'll go ahead and let you put the OSB plywood on the inside of the building, on the exterior walls, because you need to have that rigidity for the second floor. But I realize you can't put that on the outside. Because of that, you can't put insulation in after you put the wood, after you frame it. What are you gonna do? So what we had to do is we had to tell our spray foam people, I said, look, we're gonna put the building up, then you come and spray foam it, and then we're gonna have the framers come in and they're gonna put the wood on. That way, it's all enclosed and done. But we carefully followed all the instructions from the county. Of course, they had to come and check the spray foam before we started the wood insulation and all that stuff, but we are good. So that was the first floor spray foam with closed cell. The second floor was spray foamed after the wood was already in there. Number one, because they could reach the second floor. They didn't have to use the stilts, or they didn't have to use the scaffolding. They could just walk over and spray it. The trouble is that it was a little more expensive to do that, because not only did they have to do the second floor all the way around, but they also have to do the roof. And there's a lot of nooks and crannies now that you have all the wood on. Now there's 2 different types of spray foam. There's the closed cell, which is much more dense and compact and watertight. That's the stuff we use on the bottom floor, because the open cell, with the amount we had to get on there, was more than the wood would support, because you had to put like maybe 6 inches of open cell or 3 inches of closed cell, depending on what the package says. It's actually not specific. You don't take my word on how much. You take the word of your spray foam people, because they're different manufacturer specs on their bag or their tube. They actually brought in 55-gallon drums of this junk. It would actually say this stuff is rated for R whatever with this much inches. So that's important to know when your county inspector comes out. What's really interesting though is that on the second floor we did open cell. And the reason was because number one, it was cheaper. Number two, we didn't have to worry about where the wood was going because it was already there. So we just sprayed it in and it filled up the gaps almost all the way. On the roof, that was controversial. About half the contractors I talked to say that you want to have the closed cell on the roof because it's watertight and it'll prevent the water moisture from going to the metal and sticking there behind it and getting all this moisture trapped in there and molding. That was a big concern. Our HVAC people, they call them mechanical, they came in, they said that they have to put in a vent in the attic so that it gets the moisture out of the attic to prevent that. So we were comfortable with going with what everyone else, all the other spray foam professionals say, which is you don't have to use closed cell because number one, it's more expensive. It's just trying to help their bottom line. He said number two, if you ever have a roof leak, open cell is going to let the water come through, so you can actually tell where the roof leak is. You don't have to guess because closed cell, it's so watertight, it'll just follow it all the way down the wall and you'll never find it. He said so there's pros and cons to having open cell versus closed cell, and you need to know both those in order to decide what to do. We decided to go with the cheap option, and maybe we'll regret that in the future. I don't know. We'll keep you updated. But hit that subscribe button so you can see what kind of pitfalls we come into. But he said he's done many stores like that, many metal buildings like that, and they said they were fine with doing it. That was, I mean, half of them. Half of them say one way, half of them say the other way. I'm sure there's a big debate about it. Debate it in the comments. I don't care. So for the first floor, we opted to do 3-inch closed cell on the bottom, which provided about R19 insulation value to the traditional fiberglass insulation. On the top floor, we had also about 6 inches or so, I don't remember how much it was, on the walls of open cell, and then about 10 inches of open cell on the actual ceiling, making R30, which would be traditional. I'm up here in the ceiling, and you can hear that when the sun comes out, it sounds like someone's always tapping on the ceiling. You can listen. You hear that? Nobody's up there. It's just the expanding of the metal. So our metal roof is black on top, and leading it to expand more than it probably should. Even with the spray foam, this is 10 inches of spray foam, you're still having a little bit of noise up here. Granted, when the ceiling gets in, this is an area that doesn't have a ceiling. When the ceiling comes in, the drywall, you won't hear it as much, but it's just something to be aware of when you create a metal building. So for the bottom floor, the cost was $5,700. We'll talk more about the top floor a little bit later. It was a little more pricey because you're doing not only the second floor, but also the ceiling as well. Framing in wood, finally, it's time to frame inside the Barndominium. We got several quotes for wood framing and even checked prices in Georgia for sales tax reasons, but it turns out the local options were cheaper. Our framing contractor did an amazing job completing everything in just a few weeks. There were some challenges needed after inspection, and we were very pleased with the results and super excited to see what used to be 3D on our computer come to fruition, and we could walk through our real 3D drawing. It's really, really bizarre. Total cost just for material was $20,326.72 for wood, plus $18,250 for framing. That's the labor. And there you have it, guys. That's part 3 of our building the Barndominium. But that's not all. We're gonna go over much more of the process, including drywall and a bunch of other things that we miss. So make sure you hit that subscribe button so you know what's coming next and you can follow along in our dream home. So like in any given place, there are pros and cons with deciding whether or not you want to move to Chattanooga or not. However, if you're intrigued with the idea of relocating to Chattanooga, starting afresh, pursuing your dreams, don't hesitate to get in touch with me. I'll be delighted to help you find your ideal place in the city. Give me a call, shoot me an email, or take my move survey in the links below, and we're happy to help you make that smooth transition. So check out my next video on Chattanooga here, and until next time, we hope to see you around town.